Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the last part of our lecture. Thank you for hanging in there with me this week. I know some of our weeks are heavier material than others, and this is one of those weeks. Unfortunately, because these things exist, we need to know about them because we want to go out and be prepared to work as effectively as possible with our families and with our communities and with the children. This topic is going to be on gun laws and mass shootings. Before we jump into the actual facts, I just want to share my perspective, my point of view. I'm unique in the sense that I actually was in school when Columbine happened, and I was old enough to remember it. And that was kind of our first major school shooting in this country. So I just wanted to share my story and kind of my understanding just to give some perspective. I was in school when Columbine happened, so I remember going to school and not having lockdown drills, not having shelter in place drills. The drills we had were fire drills and earthquake drills, and that was normal. So I remember the shift in thinking from one day going to school feeling completely safe, and then the next day going to school not feeling safe and not knowing what might happen, and then having the understanding that a shooting could be a possibility at school. Before then, it hadn't been a possibility. And then as I continued, if you have read my bio on our homepage and know a little bit about me, I actually have been working in schools. I've worked in schools for about 20 years in special education with preschool. So I've seen the evolution from this being a new thing that can happen all the way to it being very normal to have lockdown and shelter in place drills for our youngest students, even with special needs. I would go through practices at least twice a year with our students where we would practice turning off all the lights and locking the doors. And I know most of you have experienced these lockdown drills as well and understand how they kind of play out. Understand that also sometimes there's a bucket in the room because if you go into a lockdown for a long period of time, children might need a place to go to the bathroom. So these are the kind of the situations we're now exposing children to. I can share with you a teacher's perspective that participating in these kinds of drills and hearing the stories of shootings around the country, I was a teacher that would go home and think about what furniture I could put in front of the door, what cabinets I could empty quickly in order to hide students. These are actual real thoughts that happen for teachers in the educational system. I know we might hear about these things and think that they maybe are dramatized. They are not. These are definitely things that teachers go home, talk about, think about how to keep children safe. And we just to share with you my perspective because it has been an evolution of somebody of when I was a child feeling very safe at school going to having that first real incident where all of a sudden it wasn't safe at school. And now it's transformed all the way to it being part of our culture instead of there's almost an acceptance of it and trying to manage it from a child's point of view. How do we keep them safe versus this kind of shock and awe when it does happen? So I just wanted to share with you kind of the timeline because interestingly enough, I've experienced both things and not a lot of people have. With that in mind, let's jump into some statistics and talk about what actual laws exist and how mass shootings play out in our country. So mass shootings are defined as 4 or more people shot and killed, not including the shooter. It doesn't have any connection with criminal activity such as gangs and drugs. The majority of shooters are white and they are males. And the majority of shootings that are mass shootings happen by somebody within the organization. So they know all the rules and all the policies and all the practices that are done. 88% of school shootings are done by somebody who attends that school. So they know how a lockdown drill works. Firearms that are required for these mass shootings are typically borrowed or stolen from a family member or friend. They do happen more often in states with less restrictive gun laws and more gun ownership, just more prevalence of guns. They have higher rates of mass shootings. And again, this is a correlation. We're not saying causation, but it's definitely something that exists. The gun laws in this state, in order to acquire a gun in California, you have a 10-day waiting period to conduct a background check. You have to be 21 years or older, and there's lots of exceptions to being able to acquire a gun in our state. There's lifetime exceptions where you can never own a gun. There might be a 10-year period of prohibition, a 5-year, and then juveniles also have some limitations on when they can own a gun. Minors must be accompanied by adults or guardians or a responsible adult or be 16 years or older with permission. And they have to be engaged in sporting, ranching, hunting activity, motion picture, television, or entertainment event in order to be actively using a gun. We do also have a child access prevention law, which is criminal liability for gun owners that allow unsupervised use of guns for minors. Okay? The implications around mass shootings are really common sense. It increases fear and decreases a sense of safety, right? And it has this potential for pretty significant trauma, which means that there could be potential harm to cognitive development, language and communication development, social emotional development, and physical development. So really globally impacting child's development when they have exposure to these types of things. Okay. With that, I know it was a heavy week. Thank you for hanging in there with me. I will see you at your watch and work. We are done with lecture. Thanks. Bye.